Stardust.
Dear Stardust.
Dear Stardust.
Dear Stardust.
Dear Stardust.
Dear Stardust.
Dear Stardust, I write to you from my heart across time with dreams tucked in every word. Dreams for your future and your life in 2055 and for the world you live in, for the power of education to shape lives in your time as profoundly as it did in mine. In 2025, education was both a beacon of hope and a mirror reflecting our greatest challenges. I hope the precious seeds we planted and nurtured with care have bloomed into something beautiful for your generation. As a child of migrants to Australia, I was raised to believe fiercely in the power of education, not just as a ladder to personal success, but as a bridge to uplift families, to strengthen communities, and to empower a nation. Education for my family was not only about facts or figures, it was about understanding our world, discerning truth from falsehood, and forging a path guided by integrity. My deepest hope is that in your world, education has continued to grow as a super tool that enables humanity to not only survive but to thrive. I hope that our goal in 2025 of education for all has become a lived reality in 2055. I believe kindness, truth, and mutual respect are not lofty ideals, but are foundations of everyday life across every culture, every country, every government and education system. I hope these values are recognisable in the education you receive. I believe in the collective good and the potential for responsive education to nurture the power of the collective. I hope that by 2055, humanity is driven by a sense of collective good so that no person, no culture, no voice is left unheard. It's humbling for me to imagine what your education might look like. In my day, the future always felt a step beyond my reach, full of possibilities and unknowns. In Australia, in 2008, we embarked on what we called the digital education revolution, a grand vision to bring technology into every classroom, to connect, modernise and elevate learning. Although that revolution has brought remarkable opportunities to learning and teaching, it also taught us that powerful tools must be wielded with great wisdom. Take the iPhone, for example. It was launched just a year before the digital education revolution, and what a force it has become. A small device, a world in your pocket. It brought connection, creation, and knowledge to our fingertips. But it also brought distraction, division, and new challenges we didn't foresee. I embraced mine with joy and awe, as if it were the shiniest gift under the Christmas tree, and now I cannot imagine life without it. But as we have learned, it is how we use technology that matters far more than what we invent. I hope in your time we've learned to balance wonder with wisdom. I hope that humanity and our values of kindness, truth and peace continue to guide us in how we use such powerful tools, and that we don't allow those tools to damage ourselves or others. My dream is that in your world, technology, deep collaboration and diverse ways of learning are being brought together, not in competition, but in harmony. A world where knowledge and creativity coexist happily, where solving complex problems, protecting our planet and caring for one another are the shared work of all, not the burden of a few. I hope by 2055 the debates over climate change, food and water scarcity have been replaced by action and innovation, and breakthroughs have saved us, or at least shown us a positive way forward. And education is important in all of these. I know that no one could still be arguing over whether these things matter or indeed exist, because people will understand the importance of evidence and the solving of problems together. I hope all the world's languages are still alive. Each one holds a universe of meaning, a reflection of identity, culture, and wisdom. Our strength lies in our diversity. To keep a language alive is to honour its people. Let no tongue be silenced. May they all continue to sing. And what of schools themselves? I imagine schools of your time will be vibrant community sanctuaries, open and welcoming places where learning just doesn't stop at the gate or by the bell and flows freely, where teachers are not just seen as educators but as trusted guides, respected, supported and cherished for the revered role they play. Dear Stardust, these words may seem too simplistic and predictable. Some may label them idealistic, but I stand by them. I have tried to live a life of purpose. My working life in particular has been dedicated to young people, and I have seen time and again the transformative power of education, and I hope this still exists in 2055. Education lifts us. It frees us. It reveals who we are and who we might become. It can truly be a spark that lights a flame for a full life, a meaningful life. My wish is that it does this for all of you. When I speak with young people in my school in 2025, they describe the beauty they find in the arts, their joy in the complexity of mathematics, the wonder in science and the world around them, and the meaning they find in reading literature. It fills my cup to know that educators make a difference in 2025. These young people are curious, collaborative, and continually questioning. By now, in 2055, some of these young people are in your schools in 2055 and have become the architects of your present and will continue to guide your future. The educational systems they develop will nurture your sacred flame of curiosity. Listen to them, learn from them, and in your turn, inspire them. And so, dear Stardust, be brave in your learning, be inquisitive and kind in your questioning, and always, always believe in the power of education to light the way. With all my love and hope.
Anita Zocchi is an exceptional principal and the author of this letter to Stardust. Anita is the principal of University Senior College and has held executive leadership roles across systems. Anita clearly believes in the power of education, and through this look to the future, we understand the importance of education in the past that has been instilled upon her. Anita, you share with us today 4 distinct time periods in your letter. The first was of your childhood. The second was the digital education revolution. The third, a look at your school and education today. And of course, there's the future, 2055. Tell me about why you chose the digital education revolution as a point of focus in this letter to the future.
I think because I was thinking, and I had been reading on the day that I did this, about the ban in phones in schools, the blocking of social media, and while I completely understand it and recognise the problems they bring, I also see it as a missed opportunity. And I actually lead a school where we haven't banned any of that. We have clear boundaries of where technology is used and how it is used in the classroom. But I think part of how it works for us, and I'm not criticising other schools here, but how it works for us is that we truly try and live and speak our value of mutual respect and an adult learning environment. And so if we say to the students, we respect you and we're going to treat you like an adult, there is a responsibility that comes back from you in that learning space that is our school. So that's why I picked the iPhone, because it was topical for me on that day, and it's topical for all schools around the world about technology and how people are banning it or not using it in the classroom. And I think there's a balance. It should be in the classroom. It doesn't need to be there all the time. The digital education revolution was a huge change in teaching and learning, even though we had computers in schools, and even when I first started teaching many, many decades ago, we were one of the first schools in my first school where we were doing reports on the computer. Like there were two computers in the staff room where you had to go and sit and do your reports. The digital education revolution did revolutionise how teachers interacted with students and how students could finish tasks and complete tasks, and everybody was on a level playing field because not all schools could afford to put in systems in their school to support IT. It had a significant impact on how students could access knowledge, how they could manipulate knowledge, how they could present their work if they had dysgraphia and things like that. So it changed education significantly. And my first revolution was when I was young in my family, and my father had to leave school when he was 10 years old to become his father's apprentice as a blacksmith. So he left school in primary school. And my mother finished school at the end of year 12. She was going to go into teachers' college. I think that's why she really pushed me into teaching. But she met my father. And the rest was history, and she worked as a professional in other industries. But I'm one of 5 in their family, and we were all expected to finish high school, and we were all expected to go on to tertiary education. And we were so lucky because we were born in the Gough Whitlam era, because we were a working class family. There was no way 5 of us were going to end up at university if Gough Whitlam hadn't introduced what he introduced in the 70s.
Last week, I was lucky enough to be at a 100th birthday party, a very special opportunity. My wife's Yaya, who, like your father, did not experience the advantage of a formal education, had that same expectation and commitment to a tertiary education for her children. If we look back on the past 50 years, we see those coming to Australia in search of a land of new opportunity embrace education in a way that may not prevail in the future.
And Dad was really adamant that we are all finishing school and we're all going to university. And he became a fitter and turner, but he would show us his hands and say, "You don't want hands like these. You've all got brains, use them differently." And I think I have instilled those qualities in my own children about how important education is and how you can not only support yourself and your family, but you can support others and you can contribute to society in a different way.
I can just picture your father holding out his hands. There's a sense of optimism and pessimism in that action. The way in which he says to you that you don't want hands like mine, but the way in which he saw a hopeful future in your hands. I think that's the tone kind of matched in your letter. Perhaps slightly more hopeful, but there is a common conviction there.
Yeah, well, I think as educators, even though we have days where we go, "Oh my God, why am I doing this?" And I suppose everybody has that in their work life. I think we have a really important job to be optimistic, because if we aren't optimistic about the future, we are doing a disservice to the young people we're working with. We're meant to be the lights that light the path, right? Or help light the path.
Because we are raising far more than just IQs and scores and things like that.
Hearts and minds and spirit. If a child or a young person's heart and mind and spirit aren't all connected, it's out of whack for them, and then there are significant issues that can arise.
One of the things that comes up quite a bit in your letter is the different forms that equity takes. Some of the words that I heard that sort of touch on this are the actions of a many, not of a few. You want young people who are thriving, not just surviving. You also spoke of holding languages dear, wanting them to survive. You talked about schools being open, welcoming places. You also wish that schools do all things that are possible for all of you. There's a feature of your letter in which you're writing to one person, but it seems like you're sort of writing to many. In your letter, I also got a bit of a sense that there's something unsaid or unwritten about equity. Can you tell us more about equity and your experience?
Equity is deeply ingrained in me, and partly because I think there are a number of things in my life that have made it very important to me. As a child of a migrant, I did experience discrimination growing up and at school. And some of it was quite vile, and it stood out because I was in a school that was predominantly of the dominant culture, of Italian background. There were very few Italian background young people in my school. So I felt that discrimination, and I also had a mother who went into the professions and worked in offices full of men, and she would regale the stories around the dinner table of the discrimination she experienced at work in the 70s and the 80s. And then when I entered my teaching career, it was just in the beginning of the 80s where affirmative action was coming into the education system, where we had movement about equal opportunity, where laws were beginning to be passed. So very early in my career, I was taken by the values and the ideals of equal opportunity because I saw the other side of it and I saw it as important. And I strongly believe that, that old saying, you're only as strong as your weakest link. And until we can lift everybody up with education and assist people to be fully engaged in their education, which then helps them engage with society, we're not going to be absolutely thriving. And if you look at the countries around the world that look at education in that way, they are thriving countries and thriving communities.
That image, though, of the weakest link sometimes gives us a sense that we need to fix the weakest link, or that maybe we need to cast it off if we're only as strong as our weakest link.
Yeah, you wrap your arms around your weakest link, so how can we get you on your way?
You spoke about optimism being an expectation for educators. There's something quite lovely about the optimism of your parents. Your mum shared the challenges of her work life, but didn't seem to hold a grudge. Your dad didn't have a chip on his shoulder, He didn't say, look at my hands, look what they've done to them. He said it in a more optimistic tone. Let's make yours better, if that's the right way to put it. Maybe it's not better, but.
But he would have seen it as better.
A lot of political rhetoric at the moment seems to hold that chip on a shoulder. We see this both locally and in the US, of course, and your letter and your family seems just diametrically opposed to this.
I am diametrically opposed to what's happening in the States at the moment.
It's beautiful to hear there's a lightness that your parents seem to feel towards the future, and you carry it too. And I think it's because you're not carrying burden and prejudice. In the letter in particular, your father speaks in that way, I think.
Yeah. And if we just go to him, he had a troubled childhood, and instead of looking, from my perspective, looking at what lifted him up, he possibly thinks that, well, I did it, so therefore you should too. And we have those two ideals in any society that people say, well, I've managed to do it, therefore you should be able to do it. But life is very different for every single person, but different now than what it was, say, 10 years ago. I don't really know how to describe the difference between the two ways of thinking because I don't understand that thinking. And I think that I try to understand it. I actually just ask my family. I'm on podcast 24/7 with what's going on in the States at the moment. But to try and understand, and the only thing I come down to is fear and greed.
There is just no fear and no greed in your letter to Stardust. Where there could be greed, there's plenty. Where there could be fear, there's optimism. And that is absolutely what I love about your letter to Stardust. So thank you so much, Anita Zocchi.